G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. We are talking mid-priced midfielders today, and we're going to talk about all the players that could potentially start in your fantasy team for 2025. Let's go!
Hodge has done it from nowhere. Busted the goal from inside the 30. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy. And I am joined again by my league-winning, reigning and defending champion of the Content Creators Cup, Luke Rogerson. I'm rolling that all year.
I'm going to start editing it out.
We are talking mid-prices, midfielders today.
Yeah.
We are clearly doing this a few days later than the premium midfielders, but if you haven't listened or watched that episode, it was, I think, one of our best work. So go back and check that one out.
That seems to be happening a lot lately. Every one we've done has been our best one, apparently.
Better and better every single time, mate.
I did that Titanic gear, remember?
Yeah, that was great.
That was fucking unreal.
Good gear. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to it.
We're a sinking ship. Nothing. We're just that bad.
But yes, we're talking midfielders today, the mid-prices. And there's some popular players in here. There's some very interesting players in here.
Yeah.
So should we just dive straight into it, or do you want to?
Let's just dive in to the proverbial waters of the mid-prices.
Clayton Oliver is who we're starting out with today, guys, who is the most popular midfield-only player in the game right now. He is currently 42% owned, which is by far and away the most popular player. Is it as simple as Clayton Oliver has been a 110 player for many, many years? He's now priced at 70 odd. Is that just the biggest walk-up lock, or should we be paying attention to the fact that he did average 78 points on like 21 games last year?
You don't just become 25 points shitter
overnight,
and then that's suddenly where you're at. Not in my opinion anyway. So since 2019 through 2023, the guy had a market share at Melbourne of above 7% every single year, which is elite. 5.2% last year.
It's crazy. It's a massive, massive drop-off. In the last 3 seasons combined, he's averaged 112. Like, that is the best in the game right there. Like, before last year, I would have said that Clayton Oliver is the best fantasy player going around. Zach Merritt's probably claimed that, mantle in terms of consistency, but before last season, it was Clayton Oliver, and he is not an old player. He's 27 years old, right in the prime of his career. A random fall off like that, it's historically bad in terms of the drop off.
Everything on the periphery was what I think was going on at Melbourne, and we said this on the last one, which we recorded 2 days ago.
Yeah.
But you have to expect now that they've had the off-season to kind of deal with it. None of these players have been traded. They're all at Melbourne. You'd have to think that if that's the case, well, it's time to lace up the boots and pull up the socks and score some fantasy points.
The thing that has me hesitating just a little bit is I don't know why he was so bad. And whenever I can't put a reason or pinpoint here's a game here or here's a trend is time. I mean, we can look time on ground down to 78%.
It's
CBAs.
time on cocaine is the issue. He needs to lay off the gear.
The old talk.
I'm just assuming.
The new stat, talk, not talk, it's talk.
He and Bailey Smith have the best talk in the game.
The best talk in the game.
This is just straight slander. Lucky no one listens to this.
No, yeah. Hopefully. Clary, if you're listening, we're not trying to indict you or anything like that. But yeah, time on ground went down to 78% from 84 the year before, 71% down from 81% the year before, and his points per minute went from 1.07 to 0.81. He obviously had a lot of off-field issues. He did have also some injuries as well. He had a hand injury, I think, there at times. A lot of other little niggles. Do you remember that game where he scored 26 points against North Melbourne in round 15 on, what did he play, 79% time on ground?
I reckon you could score more than 26 points.
That is not Clayton Oliver. someone dressed up as Clayton Oliver and got on the field that day. But
Why would you want to dress up as Clayton Oliver?
Yeah, good point. Wasn't Halloween, was it?
Sorry. We're just driving over this bloke.
If you're a Clayton Oliver fan, I do apologise.
We're
I'm a
Clayton
Clayton
Oliver.
Oliver fan. Yeah, we are. But it's that type of game that it just makes me nervous. Like,
don't be nervous. You said that's an anomaly.
It is. It's anomalous. The very next week he goes 109 against Brisbane, so he was capable, but just couldn't do it consistently. Like, I'm looking at this game log, like 65, 53, 47. Those are 3 games in a row. It is baffling. Where do we expect him to bounce back to? I think is the important question. Like, are we expecting? Okay, this is a 110 guy.
No, it's a minimum ton.
Ton, you reckon?
Yeah.
I'm not as sure.
Where does that leave Melbourne if not? Do you know what I mean? Everything at Melbourne was anomalous.
I mean, obviously in the toilet, and they might be there again this year.
It's got to do with the line he's playing on. More midfield time, less bathroom time.
Cut the podcast. Oh my god! All right, we're gonna move away from this guy, but
Safety and numbers.
Safety numbers 40%, but
don't worry about it.
Okay. Are there things you want? I want to actually talk about this, man.
Okay.
Are there things you want to see in the preseason that make you go, okay, yep, tick, this guy's going to be on my side? Like, what kind of things are you looking for? Is it like a points per minute kind of a thing? Is it
smile?
Like what smile?
It's a weird one because you know the role. I feel like you do anyway. He's a midfielder.
Yeah.
So.
Were there more players running through the midfield at Melbourne than there were in previous years? I'm going to look that up.
While you do that, this one might be, and we love stats, but this one might be the old eye test. This one might be we look at him and go, okay, that's Clayton Oliver.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much data to suggest that he's not that you can just maybe write this off as an anomaly. I guess Trent Rivers went in there, but that wasn't until the later half of the season. You can't really point to that. Tom Sparrow, he was there before. Like, there's no major difference, I don't think, in their midfield. It just everyone played a little bit more except for Petrarca and Oliver. And Melbourne just sucked. Do we think Melbourne are going to suck this year?
I don't think they'll suck as bad. And even if they do suck as bad, what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So even if they're bad, I think there's going to be something a little bit different. I think that this is the safest, at least 15, 20 points of upside you're going to get.
What's it going to take for it to be a good pick? A price at, what is he, 74 or something like that? 77.
I'd take a 95, and I think that would still be, yep, all good.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty solid.
Anything under 90, you're thinking,
yeah, 90. I think you'd be disappointed with less than 90. The start of the season, I think for Melbourne, if I have a look at the table of difficulty,
nice,
it's middle of the pack.
There's a bit of green on there, mate.
A bit of green. You got Gold Coast in
round
round 3, Geelong round. Yeah, there's got a good patch from round 3 to round 5. Gold Coast, Geelong, and Essendon. North Melbourne in round 2, which prior to me looking this up, I thought they would be green, but they were a bit more on the red side. But have the potential to bounce back to a bit of a green team early in the season, especially. So I think I'd say it's a slightly positive matchup. It's nothing to be concerned about. Do you think that, Melbourne, I think, could also get some confidence in terms of a few wins here against North Melbourne, Gold Coast, Essendon, potentially. Maybe a 3-3 start. Hopefully that gets them going. So anyway, maybe this is one we don't overthink.
Safety and numbers.
It is just, it's one of the more curious drop-offs that I've seen in many years. So we'll have to wait and see. Let's talk about some GWS players. We're going to link these two players together.
Okay.
Stephen Canelio and Finn Callahan. One's the older vet of the club. One's the up-and-coming star that we're all waiting to break out. Could this be the year that Finn Callahan breaks out, or is this the year that Cogs comes back in and puts up some good numbers with a bit more of a lacking in the midfield than we've seen at the Giants in recent years?
I think that's the key question at the Giants is who is it? It's Tom Green, like we said, and then, is it Canelio? He's 31 years old now. Toby Bedford, is he going to continue to just get high CBAs in like more of a run with role? Callahan seems to be the obvious guy that would go in with. I think he's got pretty good junior pedigree in terms of his scoring as well. So it seems like there could be some upside for Callahan there. But the difficulty with Canelio, I think everything comes with the age. Obviously, last season was a little bit interrupted.
He's 31 now.
He's had 4 injury games, I think, throughout last year. So in terms of like baked in value, there is some there for Canelio. It's just whether he's going to slot straight back into that role and is going to be healthy.
Yeah, I think so. The stat I've got here is in non-injury affected games where he played more than 50% CBAs. I don't know if I see him as that like 70+% CBA guy anymore. So I went with 50% in non-injury affected games. He only averaged 88. So even if you take away a few of those, like it's obviously you got 11 points there, but I don't think with that type of price tag that's enough. No. And as a 31-year-old, and that was on 75% time on ground. So he did have the 4 injury games. So he's obviously unders. I think I would rather go with someone maybe a bit younger with a bit more untapped potential, which turns us to someone like a Finn Callahan. We've been like, he had really good numbers as a junior, came in really, really well, but we just haven't seen it yet at AFL level. He's played 5 games with, he's only played 5 games over 60% CBAs last year and averaged 71.8 on those games. The rest of the season, he only averaged 43%. So I would definitely see a very high likelihood that he's going to see an increase in those CBAs. But I'm not confident the scoring is going to come along with it, at least to the degree that I think it needs to, because there's just not much data. And I'm not a big fan on just picking a player hoping that they're just going to improve based on sheer hope, which I think is what's going to happen with Finn Callahan here. He could, same price as Canelio. If I'm forced to pick one of the two, I think I am going to go with Callahan just because he's younger. But I think I need more proven data to suggest he's going to break out than just he was a good junior player. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I'm on board with that. Yeah, all right, not much to add.
Let's move into a couple of other players. We'll group a couple of other teammates together here, and I think this is maybe a bit more of a discussion. Sam Dockerty and Adam Cerra. Let's start with the Doctor first, because he's obviously been in a lot of our fantasy sides over the years. He did his ACL, right, in round 1?
He did. It was in
opening round.
Yeah.
Miraculous recovery to come back to play in the finals. Yeah. Now, he didn't play exceptionally well, but that recovery time is very, very fast for an ACL, which gives me a bit of confidence that at least that injury is...
done it a couple of times.
He has done it a few times. That injury is, for the most part, rehabbed if they were confident enough to put him into a finals game. But there's a few question marks. Firstly, his role.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Secondly, his age. And third, the injury history, which ACLs are also usually a precursor to other injuries like meniscuses, hamstrings, and things like that. And especially when you're over 30, those risks are amplified.
Yeah, I read an article that just had a little insinuation there that in that final that he came back and played, that he was happy to be back, but he was just a little bit frustrated by the role that he played, and he obviously wanted to have more of an impact. The wing role is the one that we want to avoid. So if he plays halfback, value. If he plays midfield, value. No problems with that. He's shown in both those positions that he can score, and he'd be value at, I think he's priced at 76. Did I get that right?
He is priced at 76 on the dot.
So there's value there. It's all about the role. So Blake Acres plays on the wing for Carlton.
Yes.
Elijah Hollins?
One of the Hollins boys.
Yeah. So there's
I think it's the other Hollins.
Ollie
Hollins? Ollie Hollins. I think he's the more winger.
So there's wingers there at Carlton. Does Dockerty just bump them to a different position, or does Dockerty play halfback?
I don't know. The footage I've seen recently is he was playing with the mids, but
as a CBA midfielder.
As a CBA midfielder. But we always have to remember that in training drills, there's double the midfield.
Well, what is Carlton's midfield? So Cripps, Walsh, Hewitt.
I think those are the three. Those are the big three.
And then it's like a half Cerra, half Dockerty.
We'll talk about Cerra in a second, but Cerra, Dockerty would be the next two. I think there's a possibility on all three roles halfback. I actually think halfback's maybe the least likely funnily enough.
Yeah. He can serve his body back there.
I don't know why I think that, but the last we saw of him, he was a winger pinch hitting in the CBAs, kind of like your Josh Kelly type. Like
what does he score in that role over a season, over a few games?
I don't know. I had it in here. It's gone. But he was basically like a low hundreds guy, a low hundreds, high 90s guy.
I mean, that's
would tick the box here. That would be a good pick.
This is a guy who can find the pill. There's no questioning that. Even when the role is not quite there, like he knows how to go and get the ball. I don't know. I mean, this would be a brave one, like you said, with the injury history and with the age as well. Could we be seeing?
He has spent time in my team. The last time we saw him, he basically was averaging 20 to 30% CBAs. I could see a similar type role happening again this season, and in that season he was a 105 player. 2 years older.
Could he be? He's not going to be the Zorko of this year because that was crazy. But could he be the older guy that is value? Could he get 100?
He could be.
He's a great pick if he averages 100.
It'd be a great pick. I think I'd be very happy with that. Is he a great pick if he averages 95? I think it's a solid pick.
It's a midfield spot too this year.
It is a midfield spot. I don't think I'd be selecting him with the hopes of a DPP coming.
Yeah, I don't think you do that.
No.
In any case, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I think it's not like a Nick Martin type pick this year where he could be top of that line. I don't think I see that. He's interesting. He's very interesting. He starts off, obviously, both these players, Cerra, we're going to talk about in a second, both start with Richmond. So there's good confidence booster from the get-go.
Sugar hit, as the statesman says.
Gets the cash flowing as well. I want to see... The wing, I think, is the worst of the three roles.
Agreed.
So in the preseason, if we see halfback, I think is the best role for him in terms of fantasy scoring.
Yeah.
Followed by midfield. If I see either of those two roles, halfback, I think he might make his way onto my team. Midfield, I would consider it, depending on the other options as well.
Have you softened on your over 30s rule? Because you hate old people.
I do hate old people.
You've been on the record saying you hate old people.
There could be exceptions. You know, like Max Gawn, I started with him last year. He's an old man.
Good pick.
31 years old, Sam Dockerty. He's only just over there, you know.
But a legend of a guy, by all reports.
Absolute legend of a guy. Like, he's battled cancer. What's the third ACL, you said?
I think so.
Third ACL, and just seems like a ripper dude. So that gets him a couple of years in my book.
That's how you pick the vibe check, mate.
The vibe check. I think
Cerra's more interesting.
Yeah. I think Cerra's scary, but I think the ceiling's higher, personally.
Yeah. So
let's talk about him.
Let's dig in because this has been a guy that's obviously promised so much. High points per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't just seem to be able to just shake the injuries and really get that continuity that we need to see for an 80% TOG, a 60+% CBAs, and he's just been patchy.
He has been patchy. He's had patches of amazing. He's had patches of can't get on the field. It's been hamstring issues, and I was talking to Holmesy on the Holmes Files, and I didn't...
Were you on the Holmes Files, mate?
I was, yeah.
You must be pretty good.
Oh, yeah, I get around.
You do get around.
Yeah.
But what do you do for podcasts?
Yeah, nice.
Classic.
Let's move on. I think he told me, and I'm yet to verify this, but apparently he went to... Was it Dubai or somewhere? You got the hamstring treatment.
They've got the best hamstrings over there, I've heard.
Apparently.
They can't even eat ham.
Who's the rookie for Richmond that I'm blanking on the name of? Gibcus.
Josh Gibcus.
Did he go over there for...
And then he came back and did his hamstring in the first game.
No, he did his ACL.
Oh,
so his hamstring was good.
Well, his new hamstring fucked his ACL.
Yeah.
It went to the next point of weakness.
Yeah, the next point of weakness. So... I don't know. It's hard to put any stock into that, but I'm never one to shy away from injury-prone players. Lockie Whitfield, I'll point to last year. Dane Zorko, I'll point to last year. You're injury-prone until you're not, and he is a player that when he does have the role, the CBA midfield role, I think he offers something different to the other midfielders. He's never going to get attention.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to roam free. He's a better ball user than I think like your Cripps and Hewitts and those types of players. So he's probably going to be a better open sort of like uncontested player. What do we think his role is going to be? Is he the fourth guy in the CBAs?
And if he is that fourth guy in the CBAs, what does that look like in terms of a percentage? He has to be the fourth guy just based on what Carlton have historically shown us. It's Cripps and Walsh without question.
Yeah.
So then it's just a question of Cerra and Hewitt. And I feel like Carlton have shown us that in the last 2 or 3 years it's Hewitt. And I don't know whether that's because Cerra's just been battling with some inconsistencies with those injuries or whether it's Hewitt. And then if you're the fourth guy, what can you... I don't think you can realistically expect more than a 50% CBA kind of...
Unless the midfield's really tight, like...
Yeah, unless anyone else is out. Yeah. So Kennedy, no more.
Yeah, well, Kennedy's gone. Do you have Hollands in there a bit more? Maybe. But if I just look 2 years ago, he played 22 games in 2023.
Yeah.
There's something. In those games the year before, when he did play more than... What have I got here? When he played more than 70% time on ground, he averaged 101 in those games on a 78% time on ground. So he's we talk about points per minute. This is a high points per minute player.
Yeah.
He's famously averaged. I think he was the number one guy in his draft class when it came to his junior numbers. I think he averaged more than Andrew Brayshaw, who he used to play with. I think he averaged more than Nick Dacos in his junior numbers. So he's got the pedigree. And he comes up with a really good starting matchup with Richmond to get the game started. Is it a kind of player where you go, I want to see it first and then miss out on potentially a big round one matchup? Do you like trading into a injury-prone player? Does that you spending one trade to get him in, another trade to trade him out later?
What's the run look like after that first matchup?
So it goes bright green, Richmond, bright red, Hawthorn, and then Bulldogs neutral, Collingwood positive, West Coast very positive, North neutral. So all in all, I'd say it's an above average run.
Could you even see 2 games there? Go, I loved what I saw against Richmond. I know Hawthorn's a hard matchup. I want to
see against a tough matchup.
I'm watching the role. I'm watching the midfield mix.
I think he's cheap enough to do that.
If he just takes Kennedy's CBA percentage and they don't add anyone in, then that's a tight 4-man midfield rotation, and he's a pick if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
So I think you could potentially see 2 matchups because you're not going to miss out on a ceiling score against Hawthorn, you wouldn't think.
His career high in CBAs is 57%, and his career high in time on ground in a midfield role is 76%.
Still lowish.
It's low. So just on the raw numbers, there's upside there.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything came together and he was an 80% Tog guy, he was a 65% CBA guy, he's 100 plus, I think.
Yeah.
Price mid-70s, there's massive upside there. He's not a keeper or anything like that, but he's there to make cash and score big early on. You trade him out sort of, round 8, round 9 to a fully fledged premium, or all things go well, he goes to the buy rounds.
This is something we haven't talked about a lot, but I have definitely heard discussed is with early buys, injury prone players, let's call them.
You got a bit of safety.
You do?
Yeah. So you get off to the round 1, obviously his best 22.
Yeah.
He's got Richmond. So that's good. Hopefully he doesn't get injured in the first game. And obviously you're not picking someone who think they're getting injured in the first game.
Moss.
Touch wood.
That's a hard moss.
But yeah, then you've got 3 rounds after that to go, okay, if he gets injured and it's an early injury, all right, it sucks. I'm going to lose some cash here, but it's not the end of the world.
Well, what you're weighing up there is getting ahead of the competition enough to potentially cop that bullet, even though it's covered. I don't know, in those first 2 games, yes, he plays Richmond, but then he goes into Hawthorn. Over the course of those 2 games, I don't think he's going to get away from you because let's say he gives you a 130. Yes, the break-even's going to be low coming into round 2, but from what we've seen from Hawthorn, you're not going to have too many guys put up much more than a ton in that. So
yeah.
Maybe.
The other thing is, and I want to talk about this maybe in its own podcast, but the structure in terms of, and I know Mini Monk's a big fan of this, starting with, I think we need to start with at least, well, you've got Clayton Oliver.
Yeah.
But I think there's room to maybe even start 2 of those kind of 700K.
There's 2 more of these guys that we're talking about.
Okay. Oliver and maybe one other person, because there seems to be quite a number of players in that range. Your Dockertys, your Cerras, your Will Days. You talk about the GWS boys, the Pedling, who's a little bit cheaper. Are we picking one of these guys? And it's Clayton Oliver at this stage? Or are we floating around with some... another one, and with the idea that, okay, if they fail, we've got a couple of other options to go to.
I actually think this year is slightly different, and I think the answer is yes. I would hazard a guess that most people are going to save a fair bit of money in their forward line. I prefer the idea of maybe picking more of these value guys in the midfield than I do of going like a set and forget rucks, or having a D1 that's super expensive with no value.
Yeah.
So that's where my team's going at the moment anyway. I mean, there's a lot of time that can change, but I think I'd prefer to maybe speculate on a couple of these mid-price guys in the midfield than I would just trying to go to the top of the tree and thinking, well, I've got cash because I saved it in the forward line, so fuck it, here it is on the rucks and here it is on D1.
So Cerra's definitely someone who's in consideration for me. I think what you're going to need to see from him is an uninterrupted preseason. You're going to want to see him playing as that fourth midfielder in terms of the CBA rotation. I'd probably need to see at least 50+% CBAs, preferably more.
Yeah.
And for him just to pass the eye test in terms of how he's moving, them looking for him and things like that. But if he ticks those boxes, I think he's a legitimate starting option. I think, I don't think I want to pick both of these Carlton players. I do kind of think it's like a one or the other.
Oliver and Cerra, you would be happy to.
I think it's risky, but I think there's big upside on both of them. I think it is an option.
Can I tempt you on a Will Day? Priced at 74. So the thing with Will Day, obviously, last season is injury hampered. And not only were there games where he missed portion of the game with injury, but we know he was carrying, I think it was a shoulder, wasn't it?
Into the season.
Into the season, throughout the season. Tough young fella. But he only played 4 games with 80% TOG last year.
Yeah.
In those, it's a tiny sample size, but in those games, he averaged over 100. If you take out those injury-impacted scores, you take out games with less than 70% TOG, there's 10 points of upside there. The thing with him, I think that is maybe a little bit of a different discussion to where he was 2 years ago, is the fact that Hawthorn's game style seems to have changed significantly, and whether that puts a cap on their team fantasy scoring.
So their highest averaging midfielder was Giant Newcomb, of all people.
And he had what we would consider a stinker.
And people were loathing him at the start of the year. Yeah. So, but you can look at that two ways, right? You can look at it and they go, okay, they're not a team that produces high-scoring midfielders. Or you look at that and go, well, there's no competition for points in the midfield. Like, it's Giant Newcomb, it's Connor Nash, it's Warple. So
Will Day, to me, is their best player.
I agree. Well, I think he's their best player in the midfield.
Do you think Sicily's like a better overall player than Will Day?
I think Dylan Moore might be a better overall player.
Dylan Moore is good. Dylan Moore's very good at what he does.
He's the best at what he does.
Well, let's say Will Day's in the top 3 players at Hawthorn, and he's their best. He's their most polished player in the midfield. Maybe there's other guys that do a better role at what they do, but he's their best player.
Yeah.
He's not going at 74 with a full a full uninterrupted season. So
he, in 2023, in games where he played more than 50% CBS, because he started a little bit more like halfback midfield.
This is 2023.
2023, yeah.
Okay.
So the year prior. He went at 97.5 on 81% time on ground on 17 games. I think that's more what we can expect from Will Day.
Is it enough?
So that's nearly 25 points unders. I think that is enough. He does have the early round buys. However, we talked about this with Sicily. It's probably the best one.
Yes.
It's the best early round buy. It's round 4. He's sharing with Essendon. I don't think that there's many Essendon players that we're really considering. We talked about Darcy Parish before. I don't know if many people are going to start with like a Merritt or something like that. So I think that it's not too bad. It's all going to come down to what does he score in round 0. What do you think he needs to score round 0?
Who do they play in round 0?
That's a very good question. I will source that out for
from
us
that point in round 1, he goes into Essendon, which is a friendly matchup, but then he goes Carlton, GWS leading to the bye, and those two are orange.
He versus Sydney in round 0.
Is a tougher matchup.
Yeah,
so
it's a slight orange on the table of difficulty.
I think he'd have to go against the mighty table of difficulty to inspire me. It'd have to be something pretty big. I'm thinking something in the 110, 115 kind of range.
Yeah,
because I'm happy to cop. I think I'm happier to cop that Hawthorn buy in, like you said, round 4?
Round 4, yeah. Hawthorn's, I'd say they've got a slightly tough start to the season. They've got Essendon in round 1, which is a good matchup. Carlton, GWS, which are both tough-ish. Then obviously the bye. He doesn't score any points against the bye. And then Port Adelaide is one of the hardest matchups in the game before then going to Geelong, which is easy.
The guy priced at 76, if he gives you a 110, 115 in opening round...
I think he's pretty hard to ignore.
Especially because even in those tough matchups, this is a guy that, to me, he's just... When he's uninjured and he's just playing the role that he plays, he is that safe-ish kind of like 90 floor guy. That's why he feels to me anyway.
I think we talked about Cerra, we talked about Dockerty previously. I think Will Day is probably the safest of those three. I think
he's got the role.
I think Cerra has the highest ceiling, weirdly enough. And obviously Will Day has the early season bye, but he is the guy that, for whatever reason, I don't feel as bad about his injury history, even though he has it. I don't know if that's just, me just being ignorant, but I feel like he is the safest. If he didn't have the early season bye, I think it would be much easier for me to say, yep, let's get him. Let's watch the Carlton boys and see what they do. Pivot if we need to.
If he gets off on a bender...
It will depend on round 0.
Yeah, if he gets off on a bender, he's going to have 0, 1, 2, 3. So he's going to have 4 pricing. Am I right in saying that?
Yes. Yeah,
if
0,
those,
1, 2,
if those
3,
4 price increases get you to a point where you're kind of like, I actually want to miss him on the bye and I'd like to get aggressive. Maybe.
Yeah.
Depends what else is happening.
The old Tom Green strategy, huh?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if everything went well and you don't...
It is a long time. It is a long time in AFL fantasy, and maybe one of those other guys is going off and he's just obviously at a price cycle ahead of them because he has the round 0 matchup. Maybe you could make that pivot. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. So, again, as a player that I would definitely consider starting, he's one of the few midfielders, I think, with the early season bye that I would consider starting. Most of the others I'm putting a line through. Let's talk about some more teammates. We've got a few teammates on this list. The Adelaide duo, the new Adelaide duo, James Pedling and Isaac Cumming. This is the price tag, a little bit cheaper. James Pedling obviously coming from GWS and Isaac Cumming. Do you have a preference out of these two players? Is there one that you're leaning more towards than the other? Do you think you can have both?
I'm leaning towards Pedling. I think the role could be friendlier for him. He nominated, so he was a free agent, is my understanding.
He was a hot player in free agency. Like people were after him.
He was like a central piece of big deals that were being floated. But I think the fact that he nominated Adelaide, I think says something about maybe the role that he knows he's going to play.
You'd go to a team where you'd think you're going to have a good chance to have a good role.
Apparently he's friendly with the Texan. They apparently are from the same place. Broken Hill, maybe. I think I was reading today.
Okay, that means something.
Well,
Texas got pulled at Adelaide.
It just means that he's not going to nominate Adelaide if Adelaide haven't said to him, "Hey,
you're going to be an integral part of our midfield."
But again, this brings me to the question, and I mentioned it on the previous podcast: Saligo, Crouch, Dawson, Berry, Rankin, Laird.
I think Adelaide Adelaide is the most fascinating team to watch in the preseason in terms of the number of players that we're watching that could be in our fantasy side. Let's assume that Rory Laird is playing halfback because I think
that's going to be.
I think that's likely
where it goes.
He moved back there at the end of last season. Dawson is going to be there in some capacity. Saligo is going to be there in some capacity.
If Crouch
isn't there,
then he's not there. Because if he's not there, he's not there.
Yeah. Do you think
in the team?
We've said there too many times. There and there. Do you think he's there? Like just on January 11th? Spoiler alert, we did record this after our premium podcast. I know, we put up such a good charade.
Charade? Is that French?
Yes.
Nice.
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, oui.
Croissant. Let's
Nice.
So is Crouch there?
Well,
round 1 is Crouch in the team.
Crouch has stood up more times than I thought he was.
Because, you're going back to that well.
Yeah, I will. I'll tap it.
I think he's there.
But I thought there's wind back 12 months and there were times where I thought he wasn't there and then he was there and
he
won't go away.
I feel like he gets a bad rap, I think. I think he's good at what he does. Sometimes people maybe like want him to do other things, but I think with Rory Laird no longer in the mix, he does provide something valuable to Adelaide.
Okay.
So I'm not ruling him out. So if you've got Dawson, Sligo, Crouch.
Yeah. So straight away, Petling's fourth. Rankin's going to spend some time through there.
Rankin.
So what percentage can
Berry?
Petling
I think's
have?
gone, right? Berry's out.
Yeah, he wasn't very good. I actually
Nice.
don't know. It's just for the joke. But like, so Saligo, Crouch, Dawson. If Crouch is there, he gets a higher percentage than Petling.
Mm-hmm.
Dawson,
I think
if Dawson doesn't get a higher percentage than Petling, then he probably is playing full forward. What the fuck's going on there?
Pack it up, Adelaide, if that's the case.
So if you want to run Rankin still through the middle there, then to me that kind of caps Petling's CBAs, which is not what I want to hear.
Like, because a lot of you're thinking, okay, you're going from GWS, you're going to Adelaide. You're thinking GWS, they're a team that were in finals. I picked them to win the flag last year. They had 2 extremely close matchups that went out in straight sets. I think you're going to a better midfield in Adelaide. GWS's midfield,
Yeah,
especially last year,
and more weapons in there.
they had a lot of injured games. Now, his price, he's 100% cheap. He was sub like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
In the games where he's not sub affected, he averaged 86 in 12 games on 77% time on ground. When he played 60, so I think that's his floor, 86. So already, what's he priced at? 62. You've got, what's that, 20, let's call it 25 points of upside, I think at a minimum. Where it gets interesting in terms of ceiling is when he played 60% CBAs, he actually averaged 103 in 6 games.
I think the floor in my predictions is enough already.
Yeah. And he did, and I'm as jaded as anyone at this, he's capable of scoring 30 in that role. And I know sometimes I like to take scores out and things. I don't think you can take that score out because there was nothing in the game that suggested that he's not capable of doing that again. So he is someone that has a very scary floor.
He was in form at that point of the season too.
Oh, I swear to God, I can't believe that happened to me still. But anyway, if you start with a player like that and he drops that, his cash is kaput. And you have to trade him out because he's not in there to keep. He's there to make cash. He puts a 30 on your head. You got to trade him out because his cash is going south.
And then where do you go?
So
the article I read today as well, I think that it was either the recruiting manager or the list manager was singing his praises, talking about how he's going to add another dimension to their midfield, a hardness, a tackling. And so
I have heard, and shout out again to the coaches panel and the top 50 most relevant. A couple of Adelaide fans in MJ and Bales were talking about James Pedling, and they seem to think that he was a top 3 midfielder.
Okay.
They weren't as bullish on Matt Crouch as I am. Maybe potentially pushing him out the door.
Crouch does something different to Petling, I think, as well.
I think so. Petling's a bit more of that defensive type. Where I don't and I agree, I don't think they have too much of that. Like Berry was maybe that guy before. And so I think he's replacing Berry. So I think you've got a range of maybe mid-80s to, if everything goes well, a low ton. And if that's the case, it's a knockout pick. So right now he's sitting in my team.
Yep.
He actually replaced his teammate Isaac Cumming, who started in my side when I opened the game in December. But I've since taken him out. What are your thoughts on Isaac Cumming as an alternative to Petling? Because I think he's more popular than Petling at this stage.
Is he really? That surprises me.
Isaac Cumming, 23% owned. He's actually one of the most popular midfielders out there. 575,000. He's very cheap. So he's an extra 60K cheaper.
He is cheaper, but for me, there's less certainty on the role that he's going to be playing and sort of what that looks like. So if he's been recruited to play in a wing role, he's still going to be unders, but I just don't like it quite as much as if he's recruited to play in defence. If we go with that line of thinking that Lairdy's going to go back to halfback, is it Lairdy and Cumming off halfback who's taking kick-outs? Because if you go back and look through Cumming's stats, even in the seasons that he did really well, all of his ceiling scores did come with very high kick-outs.
Yeah.
Now, that's to be expected, of course. He's just getting a free kick. But that worries me a little bit. Like, I want to see that a player can go to their ceiling without a heap of kick-outs. They can be a little bit of a waxy boy.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether we've seen that from Cumming yet.
Yeah, I like I said, I think he's a player that people will look at him and they go, oh, he's averaged 90 before in a role that they expect him to play. He's going to do that again. He's priced at, what is he priced? Under 60, I think. He's priced at 56, so he's extremely cheap. I just think that that's a bit oversimplified. If you look at the last couple of seasons, in games where he's had at least one kick, one kick in, I should say. He's averaged 73 in the past 2 seasons. That's 11 games where he's had at least 3 kick-ins. He's on the last 3 seasons, he's averaged 77.9. So still nothing to write home about. It's not the 90s that he was doing 2 years ago. And I don't like going too far back, especially in a player like Cumming, this is not Christian Petrarca. Like, this is not a guy that is a game changer in terms of his impact. Like, he's not walking to this team and just going, all right, I'm Isaac Cumming. Let's get going.
Cumming's here, boys.
Cumming's here, boys. So
let's get going. Nice.
So I think, and especially, I don't know if people are factoring Rory Laird moving back as much as they are. That's not even to factor in the fact that he could be on a wing. Because I think they've got Lockie Scholl there at one wing. They are missing a consistent winger on the other side. So
he'll be up. I think upside.
There's more. He's going to be unders, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to what people think is needed at that position, because it's a midfield spot. He's not a defender, despite potentially playing a defensive role. But then again, this could be my Riley Bonner. From last year. So at this stage, I need to see it from Isaac Cumming.
The good thing about, so we don't get to see Adelaide in opening round.
He's cheap enough.
But the good thing about when you have 2 what we consider to be key pieces coming into your team, you're gonna have to show some cards in the preseason.
Isaac's only
games.
one guy. He's only one player.
What's happened?
Two key pieces coming. No.
Yeah. Nice, mate.
Don't worry.
Sorry. That was my bad. I should have just laughed.
Yeah, just laugh next time.
When you have Pedling and Cumming both coming in, you're going to have to show some cards in the preseason, aren't you? You can't just go, well, we're just going to play everyone out of position in the preseason and fuck around a little bit. You're going to have to put these guys in position, and you're going to have to show us something.
I think you'll get a fair indication, assuming you're going to get all the pieces playing in those preseason games. So fingers crossed that we do get a proper dress rehearsal in the practice matches. But
I reckon there might be some sick fuckery where Jordan Dawson plays even less midfield time this year.
I can see that happening too. I'll be mad about it. I'll tell you right now, I will be mad about it.
Well, do you think that we've got our fantasy goggles on? Do you think that they see him more Petrarca-like? They see him as like, we can just throw this guy forward and he'll just pinch hit in the midfield and we're just going to try and get the best of both worlds?
I think he's more Bontempelli than he is Petrarca.
I think that as well.
Yeah.
I'm asking, what do you think Adelaide think?
I don't know what Adelaide think.
We need to ask Bales.
Yeah. I don't know what they think. I mean, Bales would tell you that it was to do with Thilthorpe and them not having the options up forward.
Yeah.
Neil Bullen is also a player that we haven't talked about. He's coming in and could potentially maybe not start in the midfield, but swap with an Isaac Rankin and things like that. And
I reckon
Rankin's another player that we have to factor in here.
Yeah, he is. I think Neil Bullen's going to almost exclusively play the high half forward role.
Yeah, I would.
Which means he's going to get around the ball, but I'm not sure there's going to be CBA percentage there, especially when we already talked about how stacked it is.
Yeah, so at the moment, if I had to pick a Adelaide player, I think I'm picking Pedling. Very interested to see how many midfielders they're going to have run through there at Adelaide. I think it's a very close watch for me, just Adelaide in general in the preseason. But yeah, are you leaning that way as well?
Yeah, Pedling's currently there. Yeah, the midfield's looking. Midfield's looking pretty deep.
Mate, you got Pedling. Just spoil alert for everyone out there. You got Pedling sitting at M7. Oh my days, that's a deep midfield. You've got a blank spot sitting there, but
I'm a naughty boy.
Yeah, okay, you're going deep. All right, so that does it for the mid prices today. I'm sure, like we always do, we're going to miss out on someone. So if you have any questions or someone you want us to talk about in the future, drop them down in the comment section on YouTube. Make sure, if you haven't already, take 10 seconds out of your day and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Even if you listen on YouTube or watching YouTube, head on over there and give us a 5-star rating. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. I lied last time and said I was going to start doing the tiering videos, but I did get the number 1 coach from last year on instead. So I think that's an excuse.
We'll take that. We'll park the tiering videos.
So
keep getting good coaches on.
The draft tiers are going to be coming up, as well as we are doing a mock draft actually over the weekend with a couple of other industry smart analysts out there. So I might also do a
You're putting yourself in the smart analyst category, are you?
I said with other smart analysts,
okay.
Excluding myself. And so I might do a podcast reviewing that. We'll see how spicy it gets. But always stay tuned. Next week we will also start to cover.
Are we teaming up for that? We're just going to sit at the one laptop and...
Yeah, we could do a team
You're
effort.
going to ignore everything I say?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, nice. That's fair enough. Smart move.
So, make sure you stay tuned. We've got forwards and rucks still to come and all that good stuff. So subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.